Citizen Sleeper 2 Starward Vector begins with a sleeper being forcibly interrupted from a reboot, a process that would free them from their dependency on frame stabilizer, the component that keeps their body from failing, and make them truly free. Their gang boss is none too keen on losing out on such an effective worker given that they've provided the stabilizer up until that point. But it no longer holds sway. The sleeper is free in this one sense, but still bound to survival. The sleeper escapes, their old boss looming on the horizon, in pursuit and eager to reclaim what he sees as his worker, an extension of his wants. The sleeper makes transient routes elsewhere, struggling to define or redefine what their purpose is among the Starward Belt, all while trying to stay one step ahead of the ultimate dehumanizer. But it can be better. It has to be. Citizen Sleeper's world is one on the edge of corporate warfare. The stories don't take place on the front lines, but the impact is felt, rippling out to the wayward stations all the same. Transients, refugees, and those too stubborn to go are all forced to balance survival against purpose, against corporate independence. You work to sustain yourself, to support your rickety home, and to try and stay out of the sightlines of Senate Stat, Conway, or Essen ARP. Our life experience is a little more stretched out. We spend years dreaming of what we want to be when we grow up, pursuing knowledge that will equip us for that dream, or something more pragmatic, more attainable. We apply to work in order to afford our survival, regardless of how it nourishes us emotionally. Our own social and economic systems dictate that our survival is based off an exchange of our abilities for payment. Time and the powers that be got enough people entrenched into that way of thinking, and so it remains. We work to sustain ourselves, to afford our rickety rental units, and to try and get the chance to make something different out of our lot in life. But it can be better. It has to be. In some way, we have always been a people defined by our work. We do what we do to contribute to the whole for its survival and, ultimately, its collective prosperity. We are each a person defined by what we do, what we are capable of, how we contribute to humanity. Citizen Sleeper 2 asks us to look inward, to dismantle our life's trajectory, to examine what it means to work, to define what work means to us, or what it can mean. It is a story of who we are and what we do. When we meet someone new, what is one of the big opening questions? How do we crack the door for them? So, what do you do? It's shorthand for what's your occupation? How do you make a living? How do you provide for yourself? Years working in college, let alone attending, have shown a similar icebreaker from orientation on through graduation. What's your major? What are you studying with intent to utilize in the future for your survival? How do you want to utilize it? What do you ultimately hope to do with the knowledge you glean? Even children are defined by that trajectory, their goals. What do you want to be when you grow up? A question defined by dreams long before a callous reality ever comes into play. Before that, we are defined by our genetic material, by the unasked question, where did you come from? Those who have survived pass their survivability to something new. With these inherent shared elements, hopefully this new person can make a difference, do more, achieve more than those before. Or perhaps that potential will be wasted by circumstances out of their control. If our living situation does not permit the ability to learn, to cultivate, to grow, then we are ultimately forced into stagnation in order to fulfill our basest need: survive. When I was younger, I had dreams of being an astronaut, of seeing space, exploring stars, flying free of the Earth. Then I discovered books and stories, my dream shifting to being an author, writing the next Harry Potter or a series of unfortunate events, something resonant for young readers. Passion buckled to function in college, seeing a shift from creative writing to education before fully concentrating in the residential work that I had already been doing outside of class. Function gave way to survival, as this residential job out of college was the only way I could pay for loans, for bills, for my ability to live. For years, parents of new college students would ask me, "So, What do you do? It was too late before I realized how far I drifted from what I wanted to be in my youth. Dreams giving way to function, giving way to a need to live. At first, the sleeper is also defined by a simple question, not asked to them directly, but instead to corporate needs. What are you made for? Each sleeper frame is designed to handle a specific set of tasks dictated by their skills. An extractor that deals in harsh environments and harder labor has high endurance to complete their tasks, but no capacity for subtle intuition. An operator plugged into computers and digital labyrinths can interface exceptionally, but will buckle if forced to physically endure. Or a machinist made to repair and optimize with excellent engineering skills, but out of their depth when forced to engage with others. This could be a cost-saving plan by S&ARP, as it may require too many resources to make a sleeper exceptional at all tasks. More likely, it is another debilitating feature, like their designed reliance of stabilizer. If a sleeper is only good at one thing and specifically kneecapped in another, then they are less likely to think of escaping, of defining their work outside of the corporation. They aren't equipped to survive outside of what we provide, and so here they will stay, content or resigned to simply survive. The sleeper is in a unique position of not remembering who they are. When the reboot was interrupted, their memory was formatted, affecting what they remember and know. Certain elements stand out. Their existence as a sleeper, the visceral fear their gang boss instills in them. Others, like a close friend, the day-to-day lives they led, are gone, blanks filled in by that same friend through conversation. Though the story is told in words, the sleeper finds out who they are through their actions. Piece by piece, they rediscover who they are, how they react to the unexpected, the crew they bring on board, the goals they help others pursue, all small facets of a larger picture, focusing more and more the longer the sleeper concentrates on it, the longer they live their life. We discover who we are through the people we attract and repel. Who do our choices bring us closer to? How are we defined by who we align ourselves with and stand next to? Through our own efforts to find out who we are, we gather like-minded people in our lives for that time in our lives. This isn't to form an echo chamber, but simply because community is formed through similarity, and community makes us feel good. In time, the sleeper is surrounded by people who resonate with some part of them, and who resonate in kind with some part of the sleeper. Something I think of is how people used to be nomadic. We wandered from place to place, not to seek fortune, but to survive with our people. In a time when resources are more accessible, nomadism, to those who don't actively live it, can feel refreshing, a new way to find purpose. But maybe this is just a byproduct of the industrial age and the singular work. When we're locked in a single location or a cubicle or a point in a line for so long, it makes sense that we crave new experiences, new horizons, new challenges. The thrill of acting as a courier and a delivery driver in a new place, the transience that a food truck avails within a larger city, remote-based work allowing people to travel to bridge the gaps between people and places that geography would otherwise divide. Even in our ability or need to keep moving, there are still people we come back to. Think of the friends that you have, the relationships you've fostered. Some of them were dictated by place, like classmates or roommates. Others arise naturally, shared passions and interests. Some of them live nearby. Others perhaps only accessible through social media and technology. But they are still your people. They are still yours. That's who we are at our core. We are the community we surround ourselves with. We are defined by our work, chiefly how it aligns with our survival, our abilities, and our identities. At the core of our economic system, we need money to survive. Having a job is the most acceptable way of acquiring money. We are not defined by the means, but by the ends. We do what we do in order to survive. For a time, survival is the sleeper's lot. Landlocked on a new station after their escape, the sleepers' work and pursuits are for the sole purpose of getting off the station, of continuing to put distance between themselves and their pursuers. Odd jobs pay for supplies and fuel to travel to high-paying contracts in order to acquire the parts to escape the station. Survival. At other times, funds start to run short. In order to afford the fuel and supplies to keep moving, the sleeper does scut work for any number of paying clients around a new station. It isn't fulfilling or meaningful, it's just work, it needs doing, and people will pay for its completion. If not you, then someone else will do the work. Survival is that slippery slope that leads to unreciprocated devotion. Better to stay here where a paycheck is certain than consider elsewhere. It's all a matter of perspective in the end. Stability can mean the world to us, but be nothing more than a line item to be adjusted for those signing the checks. We work in a system built before us, designed to outlast us. I've been in positions where coworkers of mine have died. Natural causes, but still tragic, claiming old and young alike. I mourn, I comfort the others mourning, and the machine keeps spinning. Before bodies have been buried or cremated, there's a new job posting out, or a department restructuring the vacuum to adapt to the new, permanent absence. It's as though these people had been terminated or resigned. We give our all to an employer in service to the employer for the employer's continued existence and success, and they would just as quickly replace us. If not you, then someone else will do the work. We work in a system built long before us, designed to long outlast us. And we do it because we want to survive. All we have ever wanted is to survive. But maybe we have an opportunity to focus on a thing we're good at, whether through talent or teaching. We are defined by our abilities, what we are capable of, what we can do. An electrician or a plumber is defined by what systems they comprehend that others simply don't. An educator or a chef is able to make something cohesive from disparate elements, whether students or ingredients. We work based on what we can do, but still, we may be challenged outside of our skill sets. The sleeper doesn't do well outside of their skill-based comfort zone. A lack of knowledge or ability in a skill set will result in penalties to their efforts, dropping any dice roll down by 2 and increasing the chances of failure. With failure, more often than not, comes stress. I've spoken at length about stress and work, but this is more task-based. The stress that both comes from failing at a thing you need to succeed at, and from failing at a thing you should succeed at. The stress mechanic is a new feature to Citizen Sleeper. Failing skill checks both on the job and on board the various stations can result in stress. Stress accumulates with each failure, impacting more and more dice faces, starting at 1 and moving up through 5. At the start of every cycle, the sleeper rolls a new set of dice for their work. But if their stress reaches one of the dice faces, like 1 or 2, then any dice they roll with that face will be damaged. The higher one's stress, the more susceptible their dice are to being damaged. If a dice is damaged 3 times, it is broken, unusable until rare components are used to repair it. On the surface, combating stress in this setup should be easy. If you don't have some certainty of success, you don't apply your dice to that task. But then there's countdowns, crises, some limited amount of time you have to work with. In that frantic desperation to beat the deadline, we gamble with our abilities and whatever we've rolled at the start of the day, hoping we can live with the short-term stress in order to push through the larger challenges. And I use live literally. The sleeper's well-being is reflected by their available dice, their literal ability to act. If all of their dice break, the sleeper shuts down. Depending on the difficulty level players are at, this can result in a permanent debuff for the rest of the narrative or the end of the story. Think about moments when you've experienced acute stress. Maybe a spreadsheet isn't doing what you programmed it to do, despite going over the equations a dozen times before testing it out. A student, a child, screams at you about their assignments regardless of their circumstances. The kitchen printer keeps spitting out orders and every station is already backed up. The more we rail against something out of our control, the more it stresses us out, the more our actions and efforts become tainted with stress. We start to make mistakes. We accidentally delete some other part of the equation. We lash out. We burn ourselves. Stress begets stress, regardless of how good we are at what we're doing. Sleepers are not just relying on their own abilities. They lean on their crewmates throughout major contract work, all of whom excel at different challenges. Some are rounded, capable in different skills, and able to handle more stress, while others are experts, pushing ahead with a singular skill but more susceptible to the impacts of stress. By rounding out their crew and increasing how many onboard people are capable in different abilities, the sleeper can more effectively plan for the work coming up. By being proactive, they can afford to be reactive. I've been lucky enough to serve on teams like that before, each of us bringing a different skill set, perspective, and drive to the overall goal. We're all approaching that goal in different ways, coming from different backgrounds. Through that diversity of thought, experience, and skill, we did what we set out to do, year after year. Only through having that range of people and skills could we have done so. The sleeper is only able to succeed by the diversity of their crew, what they bring to the table, and how they compensate for what others simply don't know. Lastly, we are as much defined by what we do to survive as what we do that gives us purpose. It is a rarity for those circles to overlap in any meaningful way, especially within a capitalist system as ours. But we push, defining what we do in the most intimate way by what aligns with us at our core, with our identity. It is rarely profitable to do something because it matters to us, but still we pursue it. We don't do it to make gobs of money, but because the thing gives us meaning and purpose. It's meaningful in a way we wish would transcend material gain and capitalist systems. It is meaningful in the way that we carve a definition of what our work means outside of the social and economic norm. We do it because we want to, because it makes us feel good to do it. We find these small ways to retain our humanity in a system that would gladly extract it from us, given the chance. What do you do that gives you purpose? I use the umbrella of making things. I got into soap making during the onset of the pandemic, playing around with dangerous chemicals in my campus apartment to make something I could easily buy at the store. I started cross-stitching years ago because I saw a piece and thought, yeah, I could try that. My walls are full of my own work, and the walls of my loved ones are adorned with them in kind. After playing in enough Dungeons & Dragons games, I started to flesh out my own fantasy world, different quests and campaigns that could take place within it, something to make and share with others. I started making video essays because I have thoughts, and I want to share those thoughts in a way that makes sense to me and might resonate with others. These things that I make give me purpose. Through this spectrum of what we do, there is a singular question down the way. When do we stop? The longer we're on the job, the more things take their toll on us. For the sleeper, their frame starts to deteriorate, experiencing more and more glitches. Glitches can be allocated to tasks, but carry an 80% failure rate, potentially increasing stress, increasing dice damage, increasing the threat of shutdown. For us, our own bodies start to fail with age, wear, and the uncontrollable. The physical burden of manual labor, the emotional burden of being present for others, the mental burden of having solved countless problems, they all break us down. There are only two paths the further along we walk: freedom and death. More and more, we are forced to work until we die. We can't afford to save for a future when we aren't dependent on work. We do what we do because we must. But still, we take the moments we can and do something meaningful to us. We dream of freedom. We dream of rest. We dream of doing things for the sake of simply doing them. So we push for it. We call for action. We organize. We try to make something better from the machine that looms over us all. You know what it is to be driven, especially towards freedom. Yours is a life where each escape has been earned, both by desire and sheer determination. That's what we do amidst everything. We lay the foundation of something better for ourselves and those yet to come. Invariably, pieces of ourselves come out in our work. We come to the defense of others, whether someone threatens a person or a group. We tie ourselves to people, not because we need to, but because we want to. We ally ourselves with others because they provide a path of upward mobility, more power, more security. What we believe pervades what we do and defines who we are. It can be surface level. If you do work that aligns with your passions and identity, you wear your beliefs on your sleeve. Activist groups, accessibility and equity organizations, you can get a feel for what someone believes by knowing they work for those causes. But maybe it's buried a little deeper. Helping someone feel like a person when they call your office, or listening to others when protocol dictates shuffling them elsewhere. Maybe it's throwing sand in the gears of a harmful process in a way that allows you to keep throwing sand in down the line. Or maybe it's in what you do when you're not working, helping keep a home clean, cooking for others, being present. It's 100 little things we do throughout our days that we don't think about. You don't always think about what you believe in. You just do it. There are various stations and administrators the Sleeper encounters across the Starward Belt, each driven by their beliefs. Establishing worker rights and leadership, preserving the past in order to sustain the future, or the simple act of feeding others. Their beliefs drive their work and who they truly work for. Their neighbors, their patrons, their community. The Sleeper's own drive shifts throughout their travels. Work is not done for sake of survival or momentum, but in acting on their beliefs and the beliefs of their crew. The Sleeper's skill tree and push mechanics are a manifestation of growth by having done the work, exposing themselves to new challenges and blind spots they want to fill in. Increasing skill thresholds makes for more accessible and easier work on the long term. Adjusting push mechanics makes it easier to turn the tides in the short term. All of these funnel back to doing work better, but it becomes more about what kind of work we're doing, who we're doing the work for or with, and how it aligns with what we believe. Beliefs can be a detriment, spiraling into tunnel vision and obsession, especially if the belief is not in an idea, but a person or a thing. But even those beliefs can be changed with perspective, refocusing into how it can help others. A belief can evolve if it's based in principle. There will always be people who seek to commodify what we believe and what we do, to twist them into things that contribute in no meaningful way to others, only shareholders. They believe that value, product, a return on investment is what gives a belief purpose. It may do so for them, but at the expense of others. And that is not what we believe in. At the end of the day, we want to believe that our work is for others, in service to people, not in service to a CEO, a self-proclaimed leader, a manager, a wannabe king, but to the people that our work means something to. We want to believe that our work makes an impact, that it matters. But the people here, they were the ones who found me, who've kept me going since I ended up here desperate and alone. It's not that I owe them, it's that they are my family too. I know you understand this. We all find our families out here. Even as the world seems to dehumanize itself, we always find people worth fighting for. We make an identity worth protecting. We hold tight to what we believe because we want to make things better. In the end, you too are an accumulation of broken parts, long outliving their operational limits. You too are a machine that has become a story, and a story that has grown beyond the ability of others to understand it. In a world where our existence can hardly be afforded, what do we dream of? We dream of not needing to work, of retirement, of the calm that gives way to a stir-crazy freneticism that finally cascades into doing whatever we want, but ultimately doing something. Think bigger. When we are free to find our own purpose, separate from the desires of a corporation or an employer, able to chart our own vector, what would we choose to do? What would you make if you had the chance? What would you do? What would you see? What would you learn? How would you change, given the opportunity to do so? It's easy to dream, but hard to imagine. We always come back to reality. But in reality, there are still those moments in our work, outside of our work, in spite of our work, that we do something. We decide how we want to live in each little action we take. And sometimes our actions don't pan out for us, but we get up, we learn, we do better next time. Time has been pressed into it by hands, by fingers. It is a near infinite record of transient touches, each one shaping it in some small way. It is worn and worthless. It is bent and broken. And it is beautiful in all of those things. And so you press your thumb against it, your crooked, calloused thumb, again and again. Because you are a broken thing, and you have nothing left but that brokenness and the beauty that shines through it. I know in my heart of hearts that I don't aspire to greatness. I do what I do because it means something to me, and it might mean something to someone else. Somebody needed to hear what I had to say, or be reminded of what they're capable of, or just know that they're not alone as they try to comprehend everything going on around them. Just one person is enough. Even in the smallest way, we are still making an impact. We may not have the capacity or ability to attend a protest or the funds to contribute to an organization, but we still make an impact. Making people laugh, sharing time with others, listening, building our community, one person, one moment at a time. This is what we do. This is who we are. At the heart of Citizen Sleeper 2 lies the Sleeper's main goal: initiating and completing the reboot. They know it needs to happen, otherwise their body will keep faltering and glitching. But what is it to them? A chance to start over? To keep going? To know peace? Is it the end of work, or the start of a new, different set of goals? It is unknown, but it is hopeful. What can it mean to us? Freed from the obligation and the tether of others who seek to control us, perhaps we are free to pursue work that is meaningful to us, impactful, resonant. Without a need to concern ourselves with survival, we can simply be. We can do in a way that matters most, whatever that means to us. It is a lot to dream, but still we dream. Even in such dark places, lives grow. You know that yourself from being a sleeper, from your work among other sleepers in the most wretched and distant corners of the surrogate systems. Even in the endless dark, people find ways to live. Unlike its predecessor, Citizen Sleeper 2 has only one ending. Where it lacks the variety and impact of choice from before, now there is a nebula of wondering, hoping, and dreaming as the future's hope bends in new directions. Not branches of possible futures, but a web of imagined futures, spun from the mind of a sleeper on the verge of what's next. That's what they're thinking at the end of one chapter and the start of something new. What they can do and what they want to do next. How and what we contribute has always defined us. It has meant a great deal in the past. It means something to people now, and it will mean everything when the way things are becomes the way things were. We are each a person, as we are a people who lives according to our beliefs in who we are and what we do.